Bienvenidos todos a una nueva entrevista aquí desde el estudio de la Escuela de Periodismo y Comunicaciones de la Universidad Gabriela Mistral. Nos encontramos hoy día con un invitado muy especial, que además nos visita en un momento muy especial también de la educación y los avances tecnológicos, como es Nicolaas Matthijs. Nicolás es CPO, Chief Product Officer de Anthology, y vamos a tener una conversación sobre los desafíos de la educación y del mundo laboral y todos los aspectos relacionados con lo que tiene que ver con educación y cómo nos preparamos para el mundo laboral, para los estudiantes, los prospectos de ahora y los del futuro, ¿no? Así que voy a comenzar con las preguntas y lo vamos a hacer en inglés, pero no habrá problema con la traducción. Nicolás, you have been an entrepreneur and you have been a long time, related with the link between technology and education. What would you say are the key challenges and opportunities that are you seeing today with this environment, of the mix between technologies and education that we're seeing nowadays?
And to me, it's actually quite interesting because as I kind of reflect on my last 20 years in education, I've never known a time in education with more challenges, really around the world. Anything from kind of challenges around the cost of education, enrollments, kind of the changing student expectations, retention, et cetera. And so, and obviously there's the onset of AI as well. And so when you combine all of those challenges, it's actually, while it's a difficult time for higher education, it's also kind of a challenge. It's also an exciting time because now is the time where we need to really define what education in the future looks like. And when we think about the challenges around kind of retention, around student expectations, around upskilling of the workforce, et cetera, technology is actually, I believe, going to play a really important role in defining what that future looks like, and AI will be a part of that answer as well. And so figuring out what those next 5 years look like and how we really kind of start to marry up the technology that's now available and that will become available with some of the challenges that we see in higher education, to me is really exciting, and I think the next few years are going to be quite fascinating.
And on that same line of thought, what do you see are the opportunities for technology to provide in the education environment to solve like global scale challenges? Because in parallel of technology in education, we have global scale challenges like climate change, interplanetary inhabitants, etc. And that's going at the same time as we are having these challenges in the education spectrum, right? So what do you think is the role between education and these global challenges using or not technology?
Well, I mean, and that's kind of quite a difficult question. Ultimately, I think it's mostly about preparing learners and preparing students to deal with an uncertain environment and an environment that has a lot of challenges, and being able to embrace technology as part of that with kind of in the right ways and in responsible ways. So as we think about challenges like climate change, for example, actually for students to be fluent in kind of AI, the use of AI, understanding the environmental impacts of AI in terms of climate change as well, I think is going to be very important. So to me, it's all about, we need to make sure that we prepare students for the future and being able to deal with an uncertain environment. And I think technology has a really critical role to play in that.
Awesome. And in that sense, what would you say is required within the higher education institutions, or even the other grades, to have not in terms of technology only, but on their mindsets and culture to implement this different set of teaching?
Yeah, and so obviously we come from an era of education where a lot of education was delivered kind of from the front, kind of sage on the stage, and I think we're changing more to for education to be more be more experiential, for students to be really kind of involved in that in that process. And so, sorry, I'm forgetting the original question now a little bit. So do remind me.
So what would you think? What would you say would be some characteristics or dimensions that universities should have to implement this sort of new ways of teaching, the students using technology, etc.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it also comes back to the conversation that we were having together this morning. It's about the willingness to embrace new technologies, to kind of be on the cutting edge, kind of allow students to, again, kind of experience some of these changes in technology. And to me, a really big concept for the next several years is going to be AI literacy for students, being able to kind of, as an educational institutions, I think we've got a responsibility to make sure that students have the opportunity to experience things like artificial intelligence as part of their education, do it in a kind of in a safe environment so that they can understand, because they'll be expected to use it in the workforce, they'll be expected to kind of use it to solve real problems. And so incorporating that into the curriculum, giving them access to those experiences is really important, so that they know how to interact with these technologies, but also that they understand the strengths and the weaknesses of these technologies, so they can apply them in the right way. So I think being, as we said this morning, being willing to embrace, being willing to experiment, being open to failing. Failing is a really important concept for me. I think is going to be critical, and really need to create institutional cultures that embrace that.
Awesome. And maybe you could talk about what do you think, what we could say, to those that are still reluctant, on the verge of AI and education, because we have a huge debate all around the world regarding these issues. And maybe since your experience and what Anthology has done, maybe you could share some thoughts on that.
It's actually a real challenge, and so I see the same thing as you, that kind of all over the world there's a lot of resistance still to AI within education. There's a lot of concerns, and to me it's really important that institutions, again, kind of embrace it and experiment, and actually leverage some of the tools that are available, and use that to build awareness, kind of have that conversation at the institution. But ultimately it comes down to trying it and embracing it and just making it part of what you do. And I think one of the good things, for example, for institutions using some of our tools is that we're trying to make it as easy as possible to embrace it. We're we put together like a framework to help institutions think through how do you create a policy for your institution that is responsible but also allows you to embrace innovations. We've actually put quite a bit of AI technology inside of our learning management system, for example, and that's just part of the course. So we're trying to provide ways in which you can very easily say, okay, we're going to try this, we're going to get some feedback, but ultimately it comes down to being willing to experiment, being willing to embrace. I do think it's really important that we understand kind of both the strengths as well as the weaknesses of these technologies, and some of the weaknesses include things like the potential for hallucinations. Like sometimes it will make things up, like the potential for kind of lack of explainability. Like it's a little bit of a black box. Things like bias, things like what data goes into training a model, things like the environmental impact of AI. So I think it's very important that we are aware of those challenges and those limitations, and really kind of come up with solutions, come up with experiments that kind of allow for those limitations, and again, kind of encourage that responsible way of using AI. So to me, it's all about trying, experimenting, embrace the tools that you have, and then share with your community what's working, what's not working, what do we want to continue to do, what do you want to change. But we also need institutions like yours to, again, educate the wider community about this is what we're doing, this is what's worked, because there's nothing more important for higher education than hearing from other higher education institutions on what's working and what's not working. So
Right.
thank you for leading the charge on this. Yeah.
Thank you, and it's quite I would say an honor, to have your perspective on this, and because on the history of humanity, every new technology has made some sort of disruption in how we interact as a community, and our name is given from the Nobel Prize Gabriela Mistral, and she was a leading educator on the previous century, and at the mid 50s, there was a huge discussion like the one we have now with AI regarding image use in the education setup. You had the disruption that radio had already done. You had the photography and cinema, especially. Television was a new thing, and educators were really scared that education was either going to be disturbed or they were going to be replaced with educational content. And Gabriela Mistral was a leading voice in, saying that we should embrace these technologies to improve our education system, and profile, because she was also, a very she cared about the human aspect of education,
Yep.
and she said, we need to embrace this. This is a very good thing for us as educators, as well as we take care of every student personally and in a very human scale, dimension. And the same thing I'm hearing from you, as a perspective on what we should be doing in education setups with technology.
I think it's a very similar moment in time now where, and kind of the onset of like video and television and film, etc. It did change education, but it didn't replace it. And so I think we had similar moments with things like Wikipedia coming onto the stage, or just the internet in general. And I think we've got another moment where that's going to happen, or where that is happening now. It's going to happen even faster than kind of how it's happened in the past. But you can't ignore new technology. It's not going to go away by not embracing it. So you have to embrace it. And I'm like, my background is in AI, so it's kind of a full circle moment for me as well. But I am a huge believer, and all of the research points to this as well, that the best uses of AI are really where humans and AI work together. And that's where you can really start to improve the quality of what we're doing, start to increase the impact of what we're doing. All of the research is pointing that when humans and AI work together, that's where things really get better. So that's where I think we'll end up. I think we'll find really interesting ways for technology to drive a better experience for students, for technology to drive a more personalized experience, for technology to, again, kind of just continue to improve that educational journey. But it will be with humans in the middle, and humans kind of being a part of that, and instructors being a part of that. That's where I think we'll end up. It will look different than what we have today, but hopefully it'll be better. Yeah. And I don't think faculties are going anywhere. I think we will need them as part of this process.
And maybe we'll need them more.
I think so, and maybe this will become. They'll be able to focus more on the coaching and the kind of the personal side of things, which would be a very good thing.
Yeah, for sure. And well, as I said, Mistral was a very innovative voice on her era, but she was a visionary. She envisioned how the educational setup will look. Taking advantage of those technologies at that era. What would you say, being in Anthology, which is a huge, a company providing services in education for millions of people around the world with different, realities, cultures, etc. What would you say to the students directly regarding this, opportunity of embracing technology, and all the things that you are at the forefront of implementing, and maybe students are going to find themselves exposed to all of that?
Yeah, no, and as far as the students concerned, then I have the fortune of being able to talk to a lot of students around the world, and I think the good news there is that most students, I would say, are very willing to embrace these technologies. I think students are very keen to understand better like how these technologies work, how they can leverage them. They understand that they'll be expected to use them kind of in the workforce, they'll be expected to use them going forward, but they also want to understand, like, again, how they work and when should I not be using them and when should I be using them. So I think that willingness to embrace and really build that literacy of AI, I think is generally there. So I kind of see the challenge being more with institutions not wanting to embrace that and make it part of the curriculum. So we will see. I think students have quite a nuanced view on this as well. I see a lot of students where they are willing to embrace AI and other technologies, but they want that human to continue to be present. I see students being less excited about like AI or technology completely replacing any human touch. Like they're not all that interested in it, but if it's embraced in the right way, I think they're ready for it. But they're hungry to experience it in different ways and really learn what works, what doesn't work, and how can I use it going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And as I said, as you're at the forefront of all these developments that we are seeing, especially in education setups, would you be able to, try to figure out what we're going to see in a couple of years more? Because we're now living, technology disruption, but we are going to have more in the future. What would you say it would be the challenges that we're going to have then that we're not seeing today?
It's really hard to tell because it's moving so fast and it's moving so quickly. I would say what I'm kind of seeing right now is that there's three categories of kind of the way in which these technologies are being brought in. There is what I would call, I've seen examples where the technology is being brought in irresponsible ways, in ways that we probably shouldn't be using the technology. For example, trying to detect when a student is using AI as part of their work. That's, in my mind, not a good idea. It's impossible to do it accurately. And these technologies are going to be part of like Microsoft Office and everywhere, and it's just going to be impossible to draw that line between when is a student using it, when are they not using it. So that to me is an example of where we're just not using the technology in the right way right now. Then there's kind of examples where we are using the technology in ways to enhance or improve what we're already doing. So things like having instructors use these technologies to improve their course design, improve their course content, starting to kind of bring in new activities like the Gloria example that we talked about, the ability for a student to have a real conversation with an AI persona. So those are examples where we're improving what we're already doing. And then there's this kind of new category of what are things that we've never been able to do before that now become possible, and are those good ideas? And so things like for example, a personal tutor that's with you all the time. We don't know yet if that's a good idea, but it's possible now. Things like a course that adjusts itself or adapts itself fully to who you are and what you're interested in and how well you know something and how well you don't know something. So those are all things that is really around that personalization angle that all become possible now that haven't really ever been tried before. It'll be really interesting to see how, I'm sure you will embrace this and you will kind of try this as an institution, but how, because the more personalized something becomes, the less they are part of a group of peers.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see where that balance is between something hyper-personalized versus something where they still have that human connection as part of their educational journey.
Right. And we also have different groups, in terms of age, location, etc. One huge, challenge that we have as humanity is longevity rates that we have, and many, elders are getting, left behind in digitalization, not to say artificial intelligence, etc. What do you think it should be, how we develop these technologies and maybe embracing them for educate all those different, I wouldn't say minorities, but different groups that maybe they are left behind because they don't have the proper tools or knowledge in technology just to use them as native digital natives do?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, because I think technologies like AI have the ability to create more of an kind of a level playing field and kind of drive more inclusion and drive access to kind of parts of the population that may not have had access before. I think one that I like to think about is the way in which we think about AI right now is driven by how ChatGPT works, where you basically you have a conversation with it, you ask it questions. Using it really well is actually very difficult, because you kind of have to construct your question from the beginning. Right. So I think we'll see a lot over the next several years where the technology almost like disappears in the background, but you'll get tools around it that make it very easy to kind of to interact with it. One thing that I think I'm a little concerned about is the cost of some of these technologies and how that can drive inequality. Like we see that right now so we very deliberately take an approach where any of the AI capabilities that we introduce in our learning platform, they're just part of the platform. Because we believe they should be. We believe that there should be kind of a level playing field. But in other industries or in other places, we see that if you want to use the AI components, you got to pay extra. You got to pay a lot extra. And so I do have concerns about, is this going to go to a world where there's haves and have-not, while the technology itself has potential to kind of raise all of the boats. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we should keep an eye on many things, and we could be talking a lot more today, but we have our time for now. So I would like to thank you, Nicolás, and maybe you could leave us a final message for students and those who are thinking to choose an education career or institution. What would be your main highlights for them to look out in terms of this future that they have?
If as a student now, I would be looking for an institution. I would be looking for a place that really, where I feel they're preparing me for the future. And it's hard to predict what exactly the future will look like, but is it an institution that kind of, again, embraces technology, tries things? So I would really be looking for that. I think as a student, again, embrace it, try it, play with it, see what works, see what doesn't work, because this will be part of your professional life as you move forward. It will probably look different than it does today, but yeah, look for a place that embraces the future and you feel like is getting you ready to deal with new technology and deal with whatever the future may hold.
That is so awesome, because our motto is actually that we invite students to write their future together with us. That's our motto.
Couldn't have said it any better. Yep.
All right. So thank you again, Nicolás, for your time and your knowledge. We hope to have you again, especially in our international congress that we'll have
I would love
to. Further this year. And again, thank you for your conversation. I hope everyone has enjoyed as much as we have this conversation. And muchas gracias a todos los que están viendo este video, y los invitamos a compartirlo, a que nos sigan también y que inviten a muchos a conocer la alternativa de educación que tenemos para el futuro en la Universidad Gabriela Mistral, con partners como Anthology y mucho más tecnología. Así que los dejamos invitados y a una nueva entrevista que vamos a tener más adelante. Muchas gracias.